America. Figured I'd touch base with you. The Garner decision just came out or the grand jury just came out with their decision to not indict the police officers involved in New York City. Of course, conveniently, only a couple days after the events in Ferguson. So we go directly from the Brown incident to the Garner incident. Now, of course, as you might imagine, it's what a great country we live in when only two injustices have occurred in the United States, especially involving race and all this time. However, let's be realistic and understand that police officers are killing innocent people probably daily throughout the United States. You don't know about it, but you know everything there is to know, or at least that they want you to know, and the way they want you to know it about Garner and Brown. And of course, they want to make it a race issue. They want you to know that this is all about race, and this has nothing to do with anything else other than that, because of course they want to goad us into some false race war. And I suggest to you that this is all hype and nonsense. If you've been living in the United States, the melting pot of the world, for most of your life, you know that this is nonsense, and this is just created by the mainstream media. Of course, the lapdogs of our wonderful, illustrious government that wants us all fighting with each other and distracted so we never bite our master, so we never see the real criminals who are manipulating and causing most of these things to happen, or at least causing us to be upset about them. Accidents happen every day. Police officers make bad decisions every single day. Tragedies happen. But let's talk about the real important thing. People want to talk about color. Let's talk about color. What are these? Both of these gentlemen had. What did they have in common? Both Brown and Garner. Well, both of them were the most important color of all. Actually, they were multicolored. They were red, white, and blue. They were American. See, after they say that they're African, which we don't know whether or not they're African or not. They may have an African gene in them. But do you know for sure that just because they're black, they're African? One thing I do know is that they're American. See, that's the other half of it. African American. Every time they talk about them, they're African American. Okay, and then I don't know if the police officers are American, because according to the media, they just say he's a white police officer. So is the police officer an American, according to the media? So what we know is these people are American. So let's go off of that. They're red, white, and blue. They're Americans. Well, both of them had their rights violated. One was walking down the street. He was not in the commission of a crime. At that point, he wasn't even suspected of a crime. Now, did he have a record? Sure, he had a small record. So what? A lot of Americans have a record. And literally, because of the hundreds of thousands of laws we have on the books, literally every American is committing one of these ridiculous crimes. I don't know, 5, 6, 10 times a day, you're committing crimes in the United States. Just because you haven't been arrested for it, just because you haven't been charged for it, doesn't mean that you haven't committed these crimes daily. Okay, so you're getting away with it. Now, are they mostly nonsensical laws? Absolutely they are. But even if you did commit a crime, police officers are not judge, jury, and executioner. They have no right to take your life. They are supposed to bring you, first of all, they're supposed to have a reason to stop you. All right. They're supposed to have at least reasonable suspicion before they can even start talking to you. All right. Now they're talking to you. They have to have at least probable cause before they can make an arrest. Now, in both these cases, they had none of that. Okay. In both of these cases, the police officers themselves were the agitator. The police officers themselves were the criminals. The police officers themselves caused these things to happen. In both cases. Now, both cases share some eerie, strange coincidences where the supposed criminal, which of course they weren't because they were not in commission of crimes, not at the time. They weren't even suspected. Okay. Well, you might say that Garner was suspected of selling cigarettes. Interestingly enough, though, they had no evidence to prove that. He didn't have piles of cigarettes in his pockets, and he didn't have money and and all of these other things that would help them to put a case together to say that they foiled some big crime of him, breaking some Bloomberg law or whatever, or tax evasion or whatever you want to call it. But regardless of those facts, these petty non-crimes in the first place, let's look at what really happened here. And what really happened was they have no probable cause to make an arrest, yet they make an arrest. Why? Because this American, now please, I don't want to hear the nonsense about, oh, well, this is different for blacks and whites, because guess what? This happens to white people too. This happens to Chinese people. This happens to people of all persuasions in America today. We are living in a police state. Things aren't getting any better. They're getting far worse. So please spare me the nonsense about this is a race issue. Of course, racial crimes are serious, but they're nowhere near. They're not controlling our lives like the media would like you to think. Okay? They cherry-picked a couple of stories, and they're pumping them up so that they can potentially start some kind of a racial unrest, start some kind of a little war, so that we're all distracted and we don't notice the real criminals who are looting and stealing from us, taking all of our money, taking all of our freedoms. But let's be realistic about this, okay? What happened here is two Americans, I don't care what color they were, two Americans' rights were violated. They were arrested, or one was arrested, the other one was just shot down in the street. One was an attempted arrest by trying to pull him through a cruiser window. Okay, what we're talking about is police overstepping their bounds, way outside the purvey of their jobs, and somehow they've forgotten the oath that they took, and no one seems to be talking about that. No one seems to want to say what needs to be said here. Oh, people want to say, oh, well, there's plenty of police officers that are good police officers. They're not all bad. Well, I have a news flash for you, America. If there are good police officers, and take it from an ex-police officer, if there are, in fact, good police officers, then why aren't they making arrests on the bad police officers? Why aren't they stepping forward and stopping these things from happening? Why aren't they bringing charges against the other officers? That's what you need to ask yourself. The reason that grand juries have to convene is because there's no evidence from the police department to do anything about it. Yet there's ample evidence in both of these cases for the police departments to have taken over the investigation, brought charges against their own, put them in a jail cell awaiting trial to let a jury decide whether or not they had committed a crime. Yet no charges were brought against either one. That's the real issue here. It's the red, white, and blue issue. Because they had rights. They have constitutional rights, and their rights were violated left, right, up, down, in and out, all over. Their rights were trampled. When there was no evidence, they had to let him go. Especially in the case of Garner. He wasn't committing a crime. Now, I don't care if he has committed crimes in the past. He was not committing a crime. There's no reason to make an arrest in that case. So there's no reason to worry about force. But sometimes these little fellows with badges, they don't like it when people don't fall down and lick their boots. That's the issue here. And it doesn't matter what race you are. We have an issue with rights being violated, Americans' rights being trampled. And that's what really occurred here. So what do we have in the Garner case? We have a guy who is not committing a crime. They were suspected of committing a crime. So boo-hoo, maybe the police officer should maybe get some kind of help to realize that if he's wrong or if he's incorrect or that maybe he might want to apologize and maybe he want to back off. But instead, no, what happened? He made an arrest, a bad one. Okay, well, that's constitutional violation right there, number one. Okay, so he violated his rights and the police officer committed a crime. No other police officer stopped him. And obviously, a grand jury didn't seem to be concerned about that fact. But let's go a little bit further. Then he puts him in a legal chokehold. which means that he used a weapon that he was not allowed to use. And in the commission of that, it caused a man's death. Now, this isn't speculation. We don't have to wonder about whether or not he was in a chokehold. We certainly don't have to wonder about whether or not there was all this resisting and fighting and the officer's life was in danger, because it wasn't, because we've seen the video. So in comes de Blasio, and he tells us all, don't worry, we're going to have cameras on police officers, so this type of thing is going to end. Are you kidding me? We watched the video. We know that Garner wasn't committing a crime. We know that Garner wasn't dangerous. We know that Garner wasn't attacking the police officers. And we know that Garner was pleading for his life. What good did video do for Eric Garner? He's dead. Justice knows no color. Look into it. That's why the statue of her, she's blindfolded. She sees no color. She sees no difference. But justice is equal for all. And in the United States, or at least the way it used to be, we are all innocent until proven guilty. And they need to follow the Constitution in order to effect arrests, and in order to conduct their investigations, etc. Those are the things that were taken from both of those suspects. Those are the things that were taken from two young men who happened to be of a darker persuasion, but both were American. Both were red, white, and blue. And this can happen to any one of us, regardless of color. And that's what you should all be talking about, not black and white, but right or wrong. Why on earth are police officers thugging, going around acting like jackboots, telling people to leave, get out of the street, go here, go there, like they are running some kind of a gangland, like they're gangsters themselves? That's what needs to be addressed here, people. We don't need to address whether or not these people committed crimes yesterday, last year, or whenever. That's not the issue. The issue is, why are the police committing all these crimes, and why is nothing happening to them? That's the issue. And if you don't think this can happen to you, you're just a special kind of stupid.